Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. Hope you guys are all having a great day. To anyone new here, a warm welcome. Thank you for checking out the channel. To my loyal bed crimers, hi, how are you? I love ya. All I ask is after listening to or watching the video, if you find you enjoyed it or learned something, do me a favor, smash that like button and consider subscribing. Now, let's dig in. The recently convicted Charlie Adelson, who was found guilty on November 6th of 2023 in a crime that left the brilliant and much-loved Florida professor Danny Markel dead, made a jailhouse call to his mother Donna and his father Harvey right after the jury announced his guilty verdict. Danny Markel was Charlie Adelson's sister Wendy's ex-husband. The call was an hour and 54 minutes long, and it took place on November 7th. The call is fascinating because it reveals so much about Charlie and Donna and how they feel about the crime and how they feel about the conviction. So to save you having to listen to the whole hour and a half call, I'm going to break it down for you right here, right now. Note that approximately 1 week later, Donna Adelson would also find herself charged in connection with Dan Markel's death, as she and her husband Harvey were at an airport trying to flee to Vietnam via Dubai. One of the first things we learn in the call is that Charlie will not be returning to his home, his son, a 5-year-old named Roman, and his dog, a dog that he got after his most beloved pup named Enzo died by what sounds like a snake bite. Now you may be asking, why were Donna and Harvey trying to go to Vietnam on a one-way ticket? Vietnam has a policy where they don't extradite citizens of other countries back to their homelands when they've been charged in crimes and are wanted in crimes. And Charlie Adelson had spent time in Vietnam, so he likely was able to counsel his parents about what to do there, where to find an apartment, etc. It's no coincidence that Donna and Harvey Adelson were headed to Vietnam on a one-way ticket after they saw a jury convict their son. The writing was on the wall for Donna, who was heard talking about the crime on recorded calls. On this call, the first thing Donna tells Charlie is that his lawyer, Dan Roshbaum, is working on getting into the jail to see Charlie later that day. Charlie tells his parents that their best move on this day is to take a Xanax because it's better than having a heart attack. Now, this is interesting because on the evening after Dan Markel was done in the morning, Charlie said he took a Xanax and went to bed. To me, this hints that Charlie was stressed and worked up after Dan Markel died at the hands of 2 hired hitmen. Charlie found these 2 hoodlums through his then-girlfriend, Catherine McBanawa. I find it interesting that Charlie's advice to his mom, who has come across as allegedly the person who may have first come up with the idea of getting rid of Dan Markel, is to do the same thing he did after Markel died of his wound, and that is take a Xanax and forget all about it. Donna replied, "We did that." So after Charlie's guilty verdict was announced, it sounds like Donna and Harvey went home and took Xanax. This is the way that the Adelson family, it would seem, takes care of their problems. Take a Xanax and forget all about it. Now, during the call, Charlie is in a special observation cell, which is where people convicted of serious crimes are placed for a number of hours, sometimes days, to ensure that they don't unalive themselves. Note that Donna Adelson would later be held in the exact same type of cell after her arrest because she did apparently threaten to unalive herself 2 times. She's currently fighting to get out of this observation cell because she claims she's being kept in a padded turtle suit without any other clothing on. She was claiming that she could not have private visits with her lawyer. That situation has since been rectified. She was also upset that the blanket that they threw at her to sleep on the floor was dirty. Hey Donna, you should have thought of that before you allegedly masterminded this horrific plot. And to me, this is yet another example of how Donna and Charlie Adelson don't know when to keep their mouths shut I'm not saying she should not have expressed the desire to unalive herself, but because she knew what these observation cells were like, and in the back of her mind she was worried about getting arrested, clearly, since she bought a one-way ticket to Vietnam, she maybe would have wanted to keep her mouth shut, show a little verbal restraint. Charlie basically helped get himself convicted because he said things that were overheard and recorded. His sister Wendy also got herself in hot water by telling her ex-boyfriend that her brother Charlie had joked about hiring bad guys to do Dan Markel in. This is a family that isn't cut out for lives of crime, in my opinion. They can't keep a secret. Charlie described his observation cell as having 2 panes of mirrored glass, and where the window should be, it's frosted, so you can only look at yourself. Donna is very interested in all of this. I wonder in that moment if she was thinking she could be the next family member to end up charged and in a cell like that. We know that by November 13th, Donna and Harvey were trying to board that flight out of Miami to Vietnam on one-way tickets. Early on in this jailhouse call, Charlie expresses his disbelief at being convicted. All along, he believed that the worst-case scenario would be a hung jury, not a guilty verdict. Charlie said that when he was called back into the courtroom after less than 4 hours, none of the jurors would look at him, and that's when he began to think that maybe they were about to declare him guilty. He tells his mom, Donna, that he's now wearing jail-issued scrubs, and he wants his lawyer, Dan Roshbaum, to pick up whatever property he still has at the jail. A sweatshirt, shorts, some flip-flops he was wearing when he was arrested. He also says he's going to try and make the best of his situation. Donna tells him he's in shock, and Charlie replies that because he's not in the same cell he'd been held in for the previous 13 months, he feels out of place and out of sorts. I think when you land in a jail cell, at first it's all very shocking, it's foreign, but over time, as you collect some items from the commissary and you have your food stash and your snacks, and you get into the rhythm and the routine, and you know who your cellmates are or who the people are in the other cells beyond yours, you develop a sense of comfort, normalcy. You're not worried that someone's going to hurt you, etc. So whenever they move you to a new jail or a new cell, it's like a whole new terrifying experience of learning the new layout of the land. And I'm sure that is stressful. Charlie goes on to state that he thought a trial in Tallahassee, Florida was going to be a, quote, joke. He said he had no clue how much social media was dedicated to his case. It sounds like Charlie may even have caught an episode of the YouTube channel Surviving the Survivor, on which experts were talking about his case. He sort of seems like impressed that we're all interested in him and his case, and we know all the details. Donna goes on to tell Charlie that everything that's been said about him has been positive. Now, I don't know what she was listening to, but the chatter on YouTube was definitely not positive about how the case was going. But some experts did express that there wasn't enough evidence necessarily to find Charlie guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. One thing Charlie emphasizes is that he should have trusted his gut in making certain decisions. The one he references most often, meaning the one decision he references most often, is one made about his former dog, Enzo. Charlie says he trusted the vet's advice against his own gut because the vet was, well, a vet. It sounds like Charlie thought he saw Enzo get bit by a snake, and then he took him into the vet, and the vet looked at the dog and said, no, this dog has not been bitten by a snake, maybe a spider, but the dog's going to be fine. And then later, the dog died of a snake bite. So now, what's outrageous to me about this is that Charlie expressed zero remorse from what I can see, or even condolences for Dan Markel's family. But the death of his dog is absolutely devastating to him. and he really questions the decisions he made regarding his dog and trusting the vet. And I keep wondering, is he also saying that he should have trusted his gut and not gone along with this plan that my impression is his mother came up with, the permanent plan to get rid of Dan Markel? I'm saying allegedly about Donna, by the way, because she hasn't been convicted of any crimes yet. Now, Charlie had the audacity to address the judge after his sentencing the other day, and the only thing he said was, "I maintain my innocence." He had no words of kindness for Dan Markel's parents and sister. It is stunning how much he cares about his dog and how little he cares about Dan Markel and Dan Markel's family. What I've seen in Donna, Charlie, and his sister Wendy are people absolutely devoid of emotion and feeling when it comes to Dan Markel, his parents, his sister, and them losing him to such a traumatic, such a brutal crime, and such a brutal way to die. I mean, Wendy changed Dan's sons' last names to Adelson. She also moved her sons right after Dan's death to Miami to be near her family. She's prevented the Markels, who were grieving their son, from finding any kind of solace in their two grandsons. I mean, this is cruelty on another level. In the call, Donna tells Charlie to be strong. Charlie brings up Bree, who I believe is the mother of his young son, Roman. Donna and Harvey tell Charlie to think about whatever he wants to do with his property and his house. Charlie has a roommate named Janice who's been living in his house and taking care of his dog, Bubbles. Bubbles is a large dog, apparently, and Charlie got Bubbles after Enzo's death, and Charlie had Bubbles for a year and a half before he was arrested, and now he's been in jail for a year and a half since that time. Charlie expresses that this new dog really could not replace Enzo, and now he has to find a home for the new dog. Apparently, his roommate Janice has been taking care of Bubbles, and she's very attached to the dog, but she's going to have to move out of Charlie's house because they're looking to sell it or rent it, and so she'll be in an apartment, and Charlie is concerned that the dog will need additional space. So Charlie's main concerns are where Bubbles will go to live, and he fears that if Bubbles goes to stay with his baby mama, Bree, and his young son, Roman, then when Bubbles eventually dies, that would have been all that Roman would have had to remind him of his father. Charlie cries over this dog situation and Roman. This is maddening because he helped take Dan Markel away from his sons, who were very young at the time, I think 3 and 4, permanently. Why doesn't Charlie have empathy for Dan Markel and his 2 sons? Charlie then brings up how it doesn't feel real when someone or something dies when you're behind bars, that it's somehow hard to believe when you're isolated in a cell inside a jail that the news that somebody has died is really true. He said it feels like people are alive and you just can't talk to them, like it's not real. Now, personally, I've always wondered how awful it would be to be incarcerated and have a loved one get sick and you can't just up and leave and go see them and take care of them. So I say this is another good reason never to commit a serious crime. Charlie also mentions that in the past year and a half, he's only been outside in the fresh air 4 times for 30 minutes each time. Now that sounds unbearable to me. Now, I'm not saying I feel sorry for Charlie because he at least can go outside. Dan Markel had his life completely extinguished. Charlie said that the walls surrounding the outside jail area are 60 feet tall. So all you can see is the sky way up high above you, but you can't see the landscape around you. You can't see any trees. So again, it's a surreal type of environment. It reminds me of an apartment I had in New York City where it had a balcony outside my bedroom window. You stepped out through the window to get onto the balcony, but the balcony was surrounded by building on every side, and the sky was way up high above us. So you couldn't really sit in the sun on the balcony, and when you sat on the balcony, you had the feeling that all the people in the surrounding apartments were probably looking at you. Charlie then brings up his young son, Roman, again, and he says he doesn't want to say anything to Roman about his life in jail for a long time, for fear it will mess the child up. According to what I read on Reddit, which we know cannot be 100% trusted as fact, is that Charlie's baby mama is that woman Bree, and she is Wendy's ex-boyfriend's nanny. So Bree got pregnant in 2018 when she was around 24, 25 years old, and I believe Charlie was much older, say 39 or so. That means that Roman would have to be around 5 years old now. And I feel like Roman is yet another victim of this crime. Next, Charlie discusses that at one time his life was so great. He said he worked really hard, he did everything right, nothing was given to him, he achieved everything by himself. Charlie said he had his own practice and thus was not aided by his father Harvey in any way in his career. Charlie says he keeps going between shock and reality, back to shock and reality, and so forth as he drinks in his verdict. And it's clear he wasn't expecting a guilty verdict and a life sentence without parole. I find it upsetting to have Donna listening to this when, from what I understand, she was the main instigator of this crime. So I'm wondering, how does she feel that she sort of convinced her son, allegedly, to participate in this crime and to find people that could handle the Dan Markel problem? Now her son is going to be living in prison for the rest of his life without any possibility of parole. His child will grow up without him as a father. And Donna's listening to this, and you have to wonder, is she blaming herself in any way for what has happened? And I'm asking myself, what type of mother allegedly convinces her son to find a way to end the life of her daughter's ex-husband so that the daughter can move with their two sons to Miami to live near Donna and Harvey and Charlie? If it's true that Donna was pushing for this plot, then she put her son's life and future at risk of being ruined. And that's exactly what happened. And then Charlie just keeps repeating that he didn't follow his gut instincts on anything. That to me means that his gut was telling him either not to participate in this crime, or in his gut, he had a different plan for the crime that he believes would not have landed him in prison. Donna replies that she, Harvey, and Charlie's lawyer have to get him out of the 24/7 observation cell, which apparently has blood and feces on the walls. Disgusting. I would not last 5 seconds in such a place. Charlie then complains about having to walk for 10 minutes in shackles to the courtroom, having to eat in shackles, and only having been given a piece of white bread with peanut butter on it for his meal. So that apparently was how he was led into the courtroom each day, and that's what he had for lunch. No more sushi and sake bomb. Charlie also speaks at length about his trial, and he said that he thought evidence would be presented at trial. And Donna exclaims, quote, "Yes, this was not a real trial," end quote. Charlie describes seeing his ex-girlfriend, Catherine McBanoa, on the stand, and knowing he was in trouble. Donna and Charlie said Catherine laid on a thick Southern accent for effect, implying she was trying to come across as a local woman, someone that the jurors could trust and believe in. Donna then accuses the prosecutors of cheating, lying, and playing games. And I'd have to say those actions are what she allegedly did to inspire her daughter Wendy and her son Charlie to go along with this crazy plot, and to get Charlie to pretend he was a mobster type with dangerous friends who could get the job done. It's all so depraved and twisted. Then Donna pipes in to say to Dan that none of us wanted this case tried in Tallahassee, Florida. Charlie then accuses the prosecutor, Georgia Kappelman, of leaving Dan Markel's autopsy photos up way too long and for too many times. He's basically saying that she tried to use those graphic and disturbing photos to get the jurors to feel the full weight of the crime and to dislike Charlie. Sorry, Charlie, but it is what it is. That's what happened. That's what happens when you hire two thugs to do that. Charlie also talked about wanting to be in protective custody in some sort of special camp. He described this as being in, quote, protected management. In these so-called camps, everyone else is in protected management too, so everyone's in the same boat. And thus people like police officers who've been convicted, convicts with high profiles, anyone who's harmed children would be the types to be in such a protective camp. So Charlie is well aware that he's got a target on his back because his case is high profile, and also because he's a guy from a wealthy family that has access to cash. This is the same situation that actor Danny Masterson found himself in after he was convicted of his crimes. Many of the ex-convicts who were on YouTube said that Masterson is going to have to pay gangs in prison to protect him if he wants to stay alive. Charlie also said that prior to being found guilty, he was getting really excited about being released because he was sure he was going to be found not guilty. He even gave all of his food in his cell away, but when the jury only took less than 4 hours to reach a verdict, he knew that he was being found guilty. Charlie is clearly not happy with how the prosecution described reasonable doubt. He's mad that the prosecutor said to the jury that they don't have to be 100% sure what happened, that they should use their common sense. Charlie sounds like he really believes he didn't participate in the planning of Dan Markel's death. To me, it sounds like he believes his own lies. Donna then tells Charlie that his lawyer said that it's not a fair system because the prosecutor opens the trial and the prosecutor also has the last word. Then the talk goes back to the dog Bubbles, and Donna expresses concern for Charlie's son Roman, saying that he will be emotionally harmed by having Bubbles live with him, because when Bubbles dies, of course, that will be the last thing he had of his father. And I wonder what Donna thought would happen to Wendy and Dan Markel's two sons after she helped push the plan to get rid of the Dan Markel problem. Did she not think about the trauma those boys will have to live through for a lifetime? It's just so weird to me. When Charlie gets upset, Donna tells him to take some deep breaths, calm down, and let us know where the authorities send you. Charlie describes his jail cell as a place where he can do a lot of thinking. He then jumps to saying, "It wasn't a real trial." Donna agrees, and she said that the people were waiting outside for a hanging, that they had already made up their minds, and Charlie ends up insulting the intelligence of the jurors. He said that those jurors were not his peers. His peers, per Charlie, are more intelligent. Charlie was mad that a 65-year-old black lady allegedly fell asleep when his lawyer was presenting important information. Now, I find it telling that Charlie included the words 65-year-old black woman, as if he's sort of attacking her as being an old person and that she's African American. I know I'm overanalyzing this, but I think he could have just said a 65-year-old woman. He didn't have to add the black part. I don't know what that adds to his description. Does it hint that Charlie Adelson may be racist? Maybe. Am I overanalyzing this? Maybe. But remember, one of the things Donna proposed to Wendy to upset Dan Markel was to dress his two sons in Nazi uniforms for Halloween. She also suggested trying to enroll them in a Catholic school, when Dan was very devoted to his Jewish faith. So Donna was willing to do anything like that to upset Dan Markel. To me, that is a very outrageous thing to say to somebody, especially when Dan Markel had a relative who was in the Holocaust. And in fact, Dan Markel gave Wendy what's been called a Holocaust diamond from his family, and Wendy has not returned that diamond to the Markels. Charlie then went on to describe what happened to him when he was arrested at home. He said the police grabbed a sweatshirt from his closet for him, and the sweatshirt said unemployed. Charlie found that darkly ironic. He said that the night he was arrested, he thought he had a burglar because he heard rustling sounds, glass breaking, his dog barking, and someone outside his bedroom window talking. So it was a raid very much like the one conducted at suspect Brian Kohberger's family home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. So I wonder if the Kohbergers had the same fears of being burglarized when they heard the sounds that came before the glass breaking and the door getting pushed down by the agents. Now, in another call that was made from Charlie to Donna, Donna says that Wendy's over at her and Harvey's house with the boys, meaning Dan Markel and Wendy's boys. And Donna tells Charlie that the boys still love him, that they don't blame him in any way. But Donna also says it's too soon for Charlie to talk to the two boys. Now, to me, this would indicate that the boys don't fully forgive Uncle Charlie for whatever role he played in their father's death. Then Charlie and Donna cry about this as if they're finally realizing the damage the young boys will be dealing with for the rest of their lives. What prevented Donna from previously thinking about the emotional toll all of this would take on her grandsons? I'd love to hear what a psychologist would say about Donna after listening to her interactions with Charlie regarding this whole getting rid of the Dan Markel problem. I mean, to me, it looks like she has no moral compass, no empathy, no understanding of the damage that would be done to Dan Markel's life, his parents, his sister, the children. No concern about possibly destroying her son's life, Charlie, by dragging him into this crazy plan. No concern about what would happen with his son Roman's life when his father landed in prison if he got caught. No thoughts about the possibility of ending up in prison herself as a 73-year-old in a cell where there are feces and blood on the walls, and you're stuck in solitary confinement wearing a turtle suit and half naked with a dirty blanket. Donna, if she is found guilty, failed to see the big picture in a very big way. The bottom line for me is that these people are now crying their eyes out because they're upset that they got caught. They're upset that Charlie has to spend his life in prison. He can't go traveling. He doesn't have his Ferrari anymore. He won't be able to be around his son. Donna's crying because her plan to escape to Vietnam didn't work, and now she's in jail too, and she's probably going to be spending the rest of her life in prison. And who knows what's going on with Harvey? He doesn't talk much. And Wendy's sort of keeping on the down low. Could that be because she too is also involved and she doesn't want to get caught? Because then her two sons are going to be at the mercy of the court. And what I think would be best for those two boys would be to land in the loving arms of Dan Markel's parents and his sister Shelley. That to me would be justice as well. Until the next time on Bed Crime Stories.